Welcome to Locally Grown In, a podcast on a mission to help entrepreneurs growing food locally. Every episode, we explore local agriculture in a different city. We interview movers and shakers and discuss the opportunities for you to get involved in the local food movement. So let's get started. I'm your host, Henry Gordon-Smith, and today I'm joined by my colleague, Yara Nagi. How are you doing, Yara?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's fun again to be here from the Agriculture HQ basement. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Yara. How did you and I meet?
That's a really fun story. So about 4 years ago, I was finishing grad school at Columbia University and went to the career fair and ended up finding a table that you were managing. And at the time, I think you were starting agritecture. It wasn't called that at that point, but I read a little bit about the blog at the time and was really interested in the idea of vertical farming and farming in places where food can't be grown. And so we kind of had a quick conversation there. I started an internship at Agritecture, and 4 years later, we're here.
Yeah, it was a minute ago, about 4 years ago. And I remember when you came to the table, you were super smart and poised, but you also mentioned a little bit of your work in the Middle East. And that really kind of got me curious and excited because I always saw that as a great opportunity for urban agriculture, especially high-tech urban agriculture. So maybe tell us a little about the work you've done in the Middle East.
Yeah, that is kind of how I got interested in this sort of field. And so I really began by diving into this understanding of energy, food, and water resources in kind of through my education in the Middle East. And I was doing it at a time where there weren't really many resources in that area. Financial resources, natural resources weren't at their best. And so we were working kind of against all these challenges. And my studies in the Middle East led me specifically to work in Dubai, which is where I actually got interested in the idea of vertical farming and farming, in a controlled area. And I really love this concept of kind of being able to grow in a space where otherwise you never think you could grow kind of local food.
And that's a great introduction to our episode this week, which is Dubai, and why I invited you to join our conversation today on Locally Grown In. I first went to the UAE about 6 years ago to attend an event called the GFI, the Global Forum for Innovations in Agriculture. And it's the largest exhibit in the region. And I remember the first time I went there, it was really exciting because you could feel that there was this energy brewing and there was this support for the topic of vertical farming especially. People were talking about it. People were visiting from international areas to share their approach to it. But you could really feel how early it was. And what I'm really excited about today is we're going to talk about, kind of the challenges that are driving that interest in Dubai and the UAE, and also the real farms that have developed since you and I met, since I first went to that region, which is really exciting. And you've been to some of the farms we're going to talk about. Like in every episode of Locally Grown In, we spend a lot of time preparing for the podcast and researching kind of the context of the city that we're going to be looking at. And Dubai is particularly interesting because it's this mega city in the desert, and it's really quite new. So Dubai and the UAE itself was only founded in the 70s. And so within this short period of time since then, it's accelerated to be a city of over 3 million people. Right. And it's really become a destination. If you're flying somewhere, it's a hub that you go through. It's become a destination for architecture. If you go there, you can see that they're extremely bold in their designs. It's become a destination for technology, for media. It's literally the hub in the GCC. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think for anyone that goes there, or if you see any pictures, you forget that it is a desert. And what that means is that, there isn't that much arable land. I think it's less than 1% of total land is arable.
Wow.
And, you have this water scarcity issue as well, due in part to climate change and the depleting groundwater reserves in that area. And not to mention, it's a hot climate. And so you have this city that's growing, that's booming, like you mentioned, but you also have this increase in demand for food consumption. So what do you do there, and what solutions are needed there? And I think the country is kind of looking into that a little bit more and taking it more seriously than ever before.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of those solutions and the steps that they're doing to kind of move local agriculture and sustainable agriculture forward. But I want to talk a little bit about the other work that you and I have been doing in the GCC, because there's some lessons learned there. Mm-hmm. So we went to Saudi Arabia, for example, and we looked at the local food system there. We did a little bit of work in Kuwait,
Right.
which you were part of that project as well. And I think it's really interesting because when we think about local food in the US, it's a premium product. It's a hot commodity. People think about it as quality and fresher and better. It's not the same in the GCC though.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I think in the GCC, the idea of imported food is seen in that same kind of way as like the premium product, as the product that you can't really get anywhere else, and it's a little bit more expensive, and that price may kind of make consumers think that the quality is better, that it is fresher.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because it's totally opposite from what we see here. And people think that product is cleaner or more trustworthy. And here, when somebody buys local, you think cleaner and more trustworthy. You think it's a smaller farmer. They probably didn't use much pesticides.
Definitely.
You think it hasn't wasted as much. And so there's kind of this whole re-education that's needed for the new local farms that are developing there, which is why I think it's so interesting, this government support piece and how the UAE government is actually trying to encourage this and how that relates to the consumer demand. One of the things I found really interesting looking at the grocery stores in the GCC was that the local product, you hear a lot of the consumers talking about local product is dirty, local product isn't fresh, but it actually has grown locally. There's small arable land areas, both in Saudi Arabia or in other parts of the GCC where farmers are growing food, but it's kind of dirty, like literally covered in dirt. And so consumers, especially a rising middle class, they really don't see that as a clean product or as a product they want to trust. Do you think there's any other reasons why they don't trust that product, the local product?
Yeah, I think it might also be because it's also sold in different markets. I think something else we noticed was that some of the bigger grocery stores were for the imported product, and a lot of families went there, whereas some of the more open markets is where some of the other vegetables came from. So they were even categorized in a different sort of way.
It's almost like a class issue as well, right? Because the kind of open markets, the classic markets have more of the local food, more of the vendor style approach, but the supermarkets are kind of looking for clean and packaged.
Packaged, exactly. Something a family might purchase, for example, for like their kids or.
Right, and the small local farms, they're not really investing in probably the same processing and packaging because they don't need to ship it in the same way.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, even though majority of times it travels a shorter amount.
And even like local itself has a different definition. The GCC, we saw some products that were grown in Egypt that were kind of marketed as local. So there's a lot of just lack of trust and education in that.
Right.
And it's really interesting as well, if you look at the data, a lot of the fast food companies from the West have rapidly moved into GCC. And so you also have this health issue that's happening there where a lot more people are eating fast food. You're seeing rising obesity rates, rising heart disease. And there's this other kind of driver forcing people to really think about healthy food.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a really good point as well. It's going to play a really important role, I think, in kind of the future of food and how people see food in that region.
So you and I saw the opportunity in the Middle East. Obviously, we've been working on some biz dev there and consulted on a couple of projects there, which has been exciting.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what the UAE is doing for itself, how they're responding to it, because we're not the only ones that notice, right? There's entrepreneurs that noticed, and it looks like the government has noticed as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So you and I started getting really excited about the opportunity for local agriculture in the Middle East and the GCC. But in Dubai, we weren't the only ones. There started to be these new entrepreneurs that were developing, and specifically Badia Farms, which you got to visit, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it was a really, really cool operation as well.
What did you like about it?
Honestly, I think the best thing about it was that the entrepreneur who started it was able to think about the consumers and what they wanted in that area. I think he did that research, and you can tell that he did, and so he's growing for the market that exists right now or at the time that he started his operation.
Yeah, and isn't that important, right? That you actually
100%.
do the market research and identify what you're growing to your consumer. And we see actually a lot of local farming entrepreneurs not take that advice specifically, but you really need to think about that. So Badia Farms is focused on the high-end market. We're going to play an interview with them soon because I got to go visit them and talk to them and see their facility. So for some background, Badia Farms is an indoor vertical farm located in Dubai. And one of the things that I found the most amazing was that the temperature was so consistent inside of this warehouse, in the desert, in a very urban area. And so they've essentially proven that vertical farming can work in Dubai and in the Middle East. So let's hear about our conversation with Omar, the CEO, and Graham, their head grower.
So Badia is the first commercial vertical farm in the UAE and the Gulf region. We started I took the warehouse in May 2016, and we began production late 2017. After trialing different systems and different growing methods, and we were able to finally sell our first crop November 2017. So what makes us special? At this stage, we're the only vertical farm that's running and that is self-funded. So we did not go out and raise any capital. We worked on the technology, innovation, IP ourselves, and we wanted to make sure we have something viable and a real business model before making any announcements and going to the market.
So what was it about indoor growing or hydroponic growing that really inspired you that this was going to be your solution in the Middle East?
Well, to be honest, growing in this part of the world, we were not exposed to agriculture. We don't grow most of the year, and I never realized, there's a way to grow where we overcome our harsh climate conditions, overcome all the deficiencies that we have in this part of the world when it comes to agriculture. Finding out that there's a way to grow it where you don't need soil anymore. You could use 90% less water. You could really overcome the harsh climate conditions, the heat, the sun. To me, that was like, wow, if this is possible, then this is something that we should implement in this part of the world.
What about your customers? What are their favorite things they like to buy from Badia Farm?
We started off growing microgreens for the gourmet market here in Dubai. We chose the gourmet market because it's one of the most difficult to get into. So we thought if we can crack that along with growing inside a warehouse, therefore eliminating the sun, the humidity, we was onto a winning format. So we do a living product, so it has got a lot more taste, a lot more texture, better flavour, and it lasts longer in the restaurants, and it's local, so it's a winner for the chefs here. The hardest part was persuading the chefs to buy a local product because they was used to local product not being very good.
And back to you, Omar. There's a lot of new policies percolating in the UAE. We have a new food security in the UAE. There's been various mentions to vertical farms being announced and policies to really support that. What do you think about all these new policy initiatives to support local agriculture in the UAE?
I mean, it's very important for the government to facilitate modern farming in the UAE and also set the bar for the rest of the region, so they would follow it. So, I mean, as you know, it's vertical farming globally still at its infancy stage, and it still requires a lot of innovation, funding, support from the government, subsidies as well. So identifying or coming up with a new policy would really accelerate the growth of this industry. I'm glad they have given it attention. I'm glad a country such as the UAE appointed a Minister of Future Food Security to really address the gaps and the requirements and to push it forward.
Well, great. I really want to thank Omar Al-Jundi and Graham Dutling. Graham's their master grower. Omar is the CEO. And it's been great to speak with Badia Farms. You can learn more about Badia at badiafarms.com. Be sure to follow them on social media at Badia Farms. Thanks so much, guys.
It was interesting to hear about Omar and Graham's perspective on the government piece, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a bunch of stuff that the UAE is doing to actually accelerate this. Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah, they're really setting those goals in a very serious way. So, for example, they have a national food security plan in which they aim to break into the top 10 in the Global Food Security Index by 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ambitious.
No, definitely. And, in addition to that, they also now have a Minister of State for Future Food Security. So they're really thinking about the future of food in that region. And I think they described what they want to build as the Silicon Valley of food technology.
Yeah, and they've made some other bold announcements, including they want to build 12 vertical farms by 2030.
Correct.
With the main focus of reducing food waste by 50%.
Yes.
So, these are really ambitious statements. And I think what was really interesting is that, policy typically follows entrepreneurship, and we've seen that happen in Dubai again, right? Badia Farms existed before these policies were in place, before the minister was there. We saw that in Paris as well. The entrepreneurship existed first. We saw that in New York. We saw that in Singapore as well. And so, to all of you who are listening, you can have a real impact when you collaborate with other entrepreneurs and tell policymakers what you want. And the fact that you're building a farm alone might push them to do it.
100%.
But let's talk about some of the problems with these strategies, because I think a lot of it focuses on technology and a lot of it focuses on vertical farming. And I think the problem is that that's not really going to get the food security completed, right? We can't live off leafy greens and microgreens, even though I'm a big fan of them.
Yeah, definitely, especially for a growing population there and for the international population that they have as well. That's probably going to be one of the main challenges, I think, that the country faces, the diversity in what they can grow.
And so to grow all of that food indoors, from what we know about vertical farming technology, it's not going to be, you can't grow a full diet there.
It's not economically feasible, right?
So I think for the policy to really be successful, they're going to have to really help the entrepreneurs identify what they can do next and kind of what other variety they can grow that's going to be more nutritionally dense, more caloric. And I think that, vertical farming itself is a gateway technology. So they have a great opportunity to use that to attract the entrepreneurs and then take the kind of collateral benefits of all that new knowledge, all that new technology, and apply it to the broader food security challenge.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I'm sure you did a lot on your trip to Dubai. Tell us a little bit about it. What were some of your takeaways from the trip?
So I have three main takeaways. First of all, the entrepreneurship trend is uber hot right now in Dubai. I was not expecting to see so much interest in vertical farming after my talk, which was on entrepreneurship and ag tech. And actually one of them said, hey, can you come by and see our farm? We're having some problems. And so I go out to the warehouse district and I visit this farm, and it's huge. I mean, it's like a 250 square meter farm, vertical farm that they've built about 2 months ago, and they're not getting the yields they need. They're not happy with the lights. They're having a lot of challenges, but they just built this farm without even a proper grower on staff. And that shows you just how rapidly the excitement is going forward. And then they showed me a building next door where they're expanding into a facility 5 times the size of it. So, the policy support also needs to be around how do you help these entrepreneurs do it successfully. Also things like food safety need to be managed there, which was a big concern for me. The other piece was the localization of technology. So I've been emphasizing a lot when I go to the GCC that you can't depend on international technologies forever. You need to localize it. And KAUST University, which was based in Saudi Arabia, asked me to present some of the technologies being innovated there. And so one of them is like a laser that does LED lighting that you can kind of have the lighting very separate from the farm system itself, which allows you to improve efficiency. You also had integrated PV into greenhouses, which could be a great win for the region, helps cool the greenhouse and generate energy to cool the greenhouse. And then we also saw more technologies around kind of saltwater production. And then I also went to go visit ICBA, the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture, and it was really exciting to see the research that they're putting into growing food with saltwater. There's an abundance of saltwater there, so if you can figure out how to grow nutritionally dense food with saltwater, then it's really going to be a huge play for food security there. So there's a lot of interesting work happening in the region. I've been to Dubai a couple times, but I really haven't experienced a sandstorm like I did this time. I was staying in the world's tallest hotel, Guinness Book of World Records, and I was on the 64th floor, and there was this sandstorm coming towards the building, and I literally couldn't even see the building next door, and it started blowing, and I could, the building wasn't shaking, but in my mind I was like, this is the end. And it's kind of got this post-apocalyptic kind of urban Blade Runner vibe to it.
Did you take a photo though?
Yeah. I took photos for the gram.
Yeah, because that really is the takeaway here, right?
at the Agritech. So in addition to my visit to ICBA, I got to go visit the Sustainable City. Have you heard of this place?
I have heard of this place. That's really exciting. What was it like?
So first of all, when you get there, it's literally like an oasis. So it's green everywhere, and it's got this river that moves through the middle of it. It's got like 11 biodomes that they're growing plants in. It's got donkeys, it's got ducks, it's got chickens, it's got little garden plots for people to farm on, and all of the houses are covered in solar panels. So it's really, like the sustainable neighborhood, I would say, maybe not a city. And what was really exciting is I got to have a personal tour from Phil Dunn, the landscape architect, and he walked me through the vision for the site. So let's move to that interview and see what he says. So we're here at the Sustainable City. Tell me about this project. I mean, you were here from the inception of it, or did you kind of inherit the idea?
No, so I've been here since it was a blank piece of paper. We're at full occupancy. We have about 500 villas here. It's around 2,500 residents. So one of the big things you see when you're walking around is solar panels on the roofs. So from an energy standpoint, we generate about 10 megawatt peak for the entire city. But that's really just one of the stories of the sustainable cities.
And so it's quite a bet to kind of make your development a living lab. Obviously, farms are not the typical amenity. You know, most developers are probably used to, you know, swimming pools or tennis clubs. How did you approach that challenge at the beginning? Did you do a lot of research with potential buyers at the beginning, or did you kind of take this bet and make this leadership role of saying, we're kind of going to be the first, let's say, agriburb in Dubai that's making this attempt?
Yeah, when we first started on the master planning, we really knew we wanted to center the community around a green space. And when you think of Dubai, you probably don't think of farming.
Definitely not, yeah.
They import 90% of the food here. Dubai has a climate here which is not super farmer friendly for the year-round thing. So our biodomes are...
It's an understatement, right?
Yeah, so it gets up to 50 degrees Celsius
Yeah.
here in the summertime. And so we layer our productive landscape with that in mind. And so we have around 1,500 date palms, for instance, here.
Mhm.
So we
Those grow
produced
pretty well.
around 60 tons of dates last year. And we've had great success over the last little while inside the biodomes or the greenhouses. And so about 20% of that production is given to the residents. So the residents, each household gets 8 coupons per month, and they can come collect those from the community management office. We run a urban farming 101 class for our residents.
Oh, really? That's great.
Yeah, so...
Does the farmer teach that, the horticulturalist, or is that some
So
other...
that's taught by myself, and
great.
in conjunction with UC Davis, a curriculum that we've developed together.
I'm just curious what questions you kind of get. What are
Well,
people's
some
main
of them,
curiosities?
a lot of them are really almost startup farmers. They really have no knowledge, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They come with a very simple question to what do I can plant here, to how much water do plants need. So it's
Sure.
really, it starts off from zero for some of them.
Yeah, I think the most, Marco's right. Most of the questions sort of start off with what should I put into the soil to start with. Soil here is it's called subcut. So it used to be on the bottom of the ocean, thousands, well, probably hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Mhm.
But because it doesn't rain a lot here, and there's a high water table, a very hypersaline water table, the soil, the original soil is super salty. So that has to be dealt with first and foremost, and then that's usually amended with some desert sand that we bring in, and all of the green waste that we generate here from the existing landscape, so all the yard waste clippings and all the amenity clippings from the landscape, that gets composted at a big facility we own called Tad Weir
Mm.
in some windrow composting areas. And then we bring back thousands and thousands of kilos of compost to amend our soil here. We also add a soil amendment called zeolite, which is a type of clay, and that really helps with the moisture retention. That's a big issue here in the desert, obviously.
Right.
And water here in all of Dubai is desalinated. So desalination is when they take the ocean water and they essentially boil it, collect the steam, and then that freshwater steam is what is the potable water. So when we get the water into our taps, it's that desalinated potable water. All of the houses here recycle 100% of the water into gray water and black water. And so that water is recaptured, treated, and then brought back as irrigation for our productive and non-productive landscape. The stuff grown in the gardens and in the domes, we only use potable water just to be
Right.
really safe. The water, that's a really big part of the story. So potable water only for inside the domes and the community gardens, but everything else is treated sewage effluent. So we use TSE, treated sewage effluent, for all of the rest of the productive landscape, all the trees and all the
incredible.
many plantings you see. So that's a really big part of the story. So the urban farming and the landscape is a really big part of our sustainability story. And on top of that, we break it down into food, energy, water, products, mobility, waste, and air quality. So those are the elements that we really focus
Those are your
on.
verticals for Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds almost like you're the circular city, right? You're recycling water. You're using it for the landscaping.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
The circular economy is important for us, and so we try as much as possible to close that loop and keep what we can within the city.
Well, thanks so much for the background. I really appreciate it and understanding kind of what you're doing here. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting to hear about the engagement piece and the classes that they have as well.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I thought what's beautiful about the sustainable city is that they take best practices. They're not innovating and changing the way things grow or the way things work. They're taking proven approaches like community gardening, proven approaches like education and engaging the residents. There's 500 villas there, and giving them access to a plot. And that's really working for them. And they're planning to expand to another location, which is going to be 1,500 of those houses.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Also the temperature was cooler there because of how green it was. And so it's actually like its own climate in the sustainable city. And that could be a really important impact for Dubai as it expands. So Badia Farms and the sustainable city are local examples, right? These are local players that are developing farming solutions. But we also have some international players that are moving into Dubai. Specifically, I want to talk about the relatively recent announcement that Crop One and Emirates are partnering on a vertical farm.
Yeah, actually, it was noted that they would co-invest about $40 million to build the world's largest vertical farming facility near Al Maktoum International Airport at Dubai World Central.
And I actually got to meet one of the representatives at the Agri conference who works with Crop One there. So they have a presence there now. They're definitely very focused on this. I think they're fundraising for the facility, but it's a pretty neat idea to actually provide all of the kind of leafy greens and maybe some small tomatoes, for the Emirates Airlines, which is really just this huge global airline.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, do you think it would make a difference for you when you're flying to have product that was grown, locally?
Oh, I would be so excited. I would feel like it would be like a full circle moment, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, usually I get pretty disappointed by anything vegetable on a plane.
Oh, true.
So on that strain of international companies coming to Dubai, I got to have a conversation with Agricole.
What's a conversation?
It's a conversation with Agricole. We're having a conversation right now. So Agricole is this French startup that grows strawberries in shipping containers using vertical farming systems. And they set up a couple containers in Paris, made a lot of kind of jazz about it, got a lot of attention because they're growing these fresh strawberries no matter what the season is. And they set up their next pilot in Dubai, and I got to visit it. So this next interview is actually with Agricole, and I can't remember if this was pre or post sandstorm, but there's a little bit of sandy noise in the interview, but it's really good content. So listen up.
So hi, my name is George. I'm the general manager for Agricool in the Middle East. I joined Agricole with Gonzague and Guillaume. It was the three of us. I joined this crazy team of two guys who want to revolutionize agriculture, and we do strawberry now.
Growing strawberries in the desert, right?
Growing strawberry in the desert, yeah. It's a challenge. We ticked that box already last September. So now we're looking to actually grow more, yeah.
But you were there from the beginning.
Yeah, I joined Agricool in January 2016. I shouldn't take all the credits. We had a crazy team, and that's actually the best thing at Agricool. Our strength is actually the team that we managed to gather around this project.
Yeah, I agree. I've been very impressed by the science and engineering focused team from the beginning that Agricole has kind of brought together. And what about you? Introduce yourself, your name, and what you do, and how long you've been with Agricole.
Actually, my name is Ferhan Muzara. I'm the marketing manager for Agricool in Dubai. I joined the company a few months before in order to improve all the marketing strategy and to reach a newer target. And as George said, to make all of our production accessible and affordable to everyone, even in the GCC, especially in Dubai, and for the future for the rest of the world.
So both of you are now living in Dubai. What's the local food scene like in Dubai?
The local food is very interesting because, as you may know, 90% of the whole food in Dubai is imported from all over the world. It came from averagely 1,500 kilometers away. So this is one of the most important stuff in terms of food security. in terms of prices and affordable products. This is why I think Agricole has a very interesting production and point of view, because there is no one producing strawberries, local strawberries, pesticide-free for the moment. So this is one of the most interesting things that we want to be a part of, especially when we are based in sustainable city.
And so, we're right here next to the Agricole container here at the Sustainable City, and you're growing indoors, right? You're controlling climate. How can you make a strawberry grown in this kind of system affordable? You said that's the mission, to make it affordable. How can you achieve that? Is it through technology?
Yeah, there's a big part of the technology that made the strawberry production very efficient, like in terms of energy consumption, in terms of resource consumption. So we save 90% of water, 90% of nutrients. So also by automating everything with our technology, we're able to reduce the cost of labor. The technology, so now we're in the phase of scaling the industrial production of containers. So in the coming months or in the coming years, the container will be cheaper and cheaper, and so we will be able to have like a very competitive strawberries.
My next question, which is about collaboration. In New York, we've got the NYC Agriculture Collective. In Paris, you have the Urban Farmers Association. Do you think that that's starting to brew here in Dubai? I mean, is there potential for a collective of different farms working together in Dubai?
I would hope so. Like there's, I think 2-3 years ago, you didn't have this much diversity of offer. The government, it's incredible. The Food Security Ministry is really pushing for this new innovation. A lot of people are coming together. They're seeing the benefit of synergizing. But yeah, it's an emerging industry in the region. So very promising.
And what about the consumers again? Agricole has gotten a lot of attention for its packaging, its strong branding. We talked a little about certifications, organic versus beyond organic. How do you navigate and how do you connect with consumers here in Dubai to help them understand the value of your product?
The thing is, in Dubai especially, and even worldwide, there is more and more consumer looking for healthy produce, locally produced, pesticide-free. So this is how we can handle it and manage it to reach our customers. I mean, we are just developing, and we can already see, for example, in sustainable cities, that we are sold out. When we do the harvest, we are sold out within an hour. I mean, so we can see that there is more and more demand for the locally produced product, and especially for vegetables and for fruits. I mean, 100% of fruits that are imported from all over the world, from Australia, from New Zealand, from everywhere in the world. So when you think about it, you're just like, okay, how can we propose local products that will reach all the needs of the consumers over here and to make it affordable? Because when you make comparison talking about pricing, we are, of course, on a niche market because it's the beginning. But when you have a quick overview, we are literally, in terms of price per kilo, cheaper than organic strawberries imported from New Zealand, either Australia. So we are definitely competitive in terms of pricing and to propose the right product to the right customers.
If I may add something, also there's the cool effect. So it's Agricole. We brand the container. It's actually a cooltainer. The people working or grower, they're called cultivators, and we sell our product to the community. So it's really something that Agricole push. It's to really create a brand ambassador, what we call a community. First people to try our product, first adopter to believe in the brand, and first people to actually promote Agricole beyond our own promotion. Like they like our product so much, to start a company or to start a brand, quality should talk first. So that's the cool effect of Agricole. Yeah,
I love that. Well, it's been fun to collaborate. Anyway, there you go. You can have it. If you were a new farmer interested, right, a young entrepreneur interested in growing local food in the UAE, what would your advice be to that farmer?
It's very interesting. It's a challenging market because, like Flavien was saying, like 85-90% of the fruit and vegetable are imported. And so if you go to talk to retailer, if you go to talk to distributor, they're not used to a new kind of fruit and vegetables. Just even to look at the supply chain, we have a premium and fresh product, or strawberry. We wait until the ripe moment to actually collect the ripe fruit, and so the shell of the strawberry is actually very soft. So the shelf life is actually very short, and that's not something distributor are used to. So I would say it's the challenge of our business now is actually to revolutionize and break a little bit the pattern of all of this.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for this conversation today at the Cooltainer. It's been really fun getting to know you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk a little bit on Agricole on your platform. Thank you.
That really was a cool conversation.
Right? It was super cool. At the Cooltainer, they called it.
Cooltainer.
But seriously, though, I don't think Agricool is going to be the last, or Crop will be the last companies internationally setting up shop in Dubai. It is the hub. It is the gateway to the GCC. And so we're definitely going to see a lot more companies moving in to set up their technology, to prove it works, and to get the customers that are really primed for local produce there now. So to wrap up our episode on Dubai, we're going to play a little bit of a lightning round. I'm going to say a sentence. Actually, you can play too. I'm going to say a sentence,
Thank you. Yeah.
and then the other person has to finish the sentence.
Okay.
You got it?
You're putting me on the spot, but okay.
Okay, so let's start with an easy one. Locally grown food in Dubai is?
Currently being defined and redefined.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna give you a question.
I'm ready.
The biggest opportunity for local food in Dubai is?
People. The people that are going to eat the food and what they want, and the people that are going to grow the food and how to support them.
I like that answer.
Okay, it's my turn. The greatest challenge for growing food in Dubai is?
Scarcity of some resources used to grow the food, and the climate and the humidity in the region as well.
You put two in there.
I did.
They're both good.
I had to. All right. Ready for the big one? I have a big question for you.
I don't even know what this... I don't know. Yeah.
It's not on my script. All right.
Shh. Don't tell the listeners.
Okay. The future of local food in Dubai will look like?
I really think it's going to be integrated into real estate. I really think that with the real estate bubble that happened, with the sustainable city, with the demand of consumers now being curious and wanting more of this, and the effectiveness of growing food as locally as possible, meaning on site, with some of the reasons you mentioned, I think that's the future of it. Integrating agriculture into real estate development is the future in Dubai. I really want to thank all our listeners for tuning in today to Locally Grown in Dubai, UAE. I want to especially thank Yara Nagi, who's joining me today. Yara, you were great.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Susie, who did a lot of our research on the challenges and opportunity and government issues happening in the UAE. Thanks, Susie. And Brianna on our audio, of course. If you enjoy Locally Grown In, be sure to find us on iTunes and subscribe. Also follow Agritecture on social media. We are at Agritecture on your favorite social media platform. And I have a couple other announcements, including the fact that I'm coming back to the UAE to speak at the Global Forum for Innovations in Agriculture on April 1st and 2nd. I'm going to be speaking all about the role of AI across the technology spectrum of urban agriculture. And coming back to the US, we're going to be having our big annual Aglanta conference, April 14th and 15th, all about entrepreneurship, create, pilot, grow. That's the theme this year. Really want to see you there. Just go to aglanta.org and buy your tickets today. Thanks so much for listening to Locally Grown In. Share this with a friend and be sure to subscribe.